There we go.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean Oso McCool. And Jonathan, today we've got a special guest joining us for a special topic. We're going to be talking about how to start a cult today. So,
hey, if that's been one of your growing passions in life to be a cult leader,
we got you
right
covered.
Place.
Yeah. As AI takes jobs, I think cult leader becomes a real possibility for people. I think there's going to be a lot of people looking for, there's going to be a lot of existential crisis going on.
Absolutely.
So if we can fill that need, give people a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about how to do that. And by the way, it might help you grow your brand if you have a brand too. So
of course, that's right. This is all
Plan
for
B. Plan B. If the cult doesn't work out, you'll have the skills.
And then you can start a legitimate business on the side too. Yeah. So, but man, if that cult leader works out for you, go for it. I'm always fascinated by, looking into the lives of some of these people who have, made it all the way to the top as a quote cult leader.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about it's technically a nonprofit, so you don't pay taxes either. Yes. If you do your paperwork right. So
that's right. Some of these guys miss out on stuff. I think they forget some details along the way, though.
Yeah, they forget to dot a few I's and cross a few T's, but hey.
That's right.
It's all right.
Well, our guest today, we've got a solid expert. He is a brand strategist, author of the book, How to Start a Cult, which we're going to be talking about today. And he is an accidental cult leader. And I know this by reading his book. So he'll have an interesting story to share on accidentally becoming a cult leader. After founding an award-winning cult-running podcast and community, our guest today, Jody Raynsford, discovered a better way to build brands and businesses, leading to publishing his book, which we're going to be talking about, How to Start a Cult. It's an Amazon bestseller and a Business Book Awards finalist. Through his speaking, coaching, and training, he now works with businesses and brands to help them achieve cult status by being bolder, building belonging, and attracting a devoted band of followers. He's previously trained in law with a journalism background, so that's pretty cool. He changed his career over 10 years ago to become a direct response copywriter and marketer. And so I'm happy. We're happy to have him on, man. This is going to be a fun discussion. Yeah. Jody, welcome to the show. Bring you up. There we go.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
That's our cult following right there. We pipe them in every now and then.
See, that's really, you've got sound effects. When we do that, we actually have to say it. We're so we're so analog.
Well, it's kind of 80s, right? It's kind of a laugh track kind of thing, It's kind of
that's right.
It's actually retro by pumping that in. So,
but thank you very much for having me on the show.
Yeah. Well, before we get to our beverages, which you have, you're coming to us from the UK. But before we get started, give people a little taste of why they might want. I mean, as if the title isn't good enough, like give a little teaser why they might want to stay around.
Okay, so the surprising thing about building a cult following is that it's not just a great way to stand out and build an incredible relationship with your audience and build your brand on a stronger foundation of belonging. It's actually just a much more simple, effective, and fun way of doing marketing and doing brand building. And that is so lacking, I think, at the moment with so many different approaches. So this is absolutely a much more fun, enjoyable, and one that's probably aligned to people who like to be a little bit unconventional as well. Who's a bit of rebels. So and I'm going to explain to you exactly why it's like that.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool.
That's us. We're rebels, man. We're drinking beer on a podcast on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
So
let's do it. So Jody, speaking of beer, this is our juvenile beer talk section of the show. So let's talk about your beer. What do you got over there?
Well, I thought I'd try and keep it keep it like rebellious by I've got a little Welsh brewery called Tiny Rebel. Absolutely fantastic brewery. They produce some like incredible IPAs. One of my favorite IPAs they create is a thing called Club Tropicana after the Wham song, which is like a lovely fruity one. But this one's a Rebel IPA. This is a session IPA, so it's only 4.3. I'm getting older, can't handle quite the levels that I used to. If I'm at home, if I'm doing a running event, I can handle anything. A running and drinking event, but just sitting at home, very, 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 very different.
Yeah, well, you're kind of burning it off as you're going, right? If you're doing a running and drinking event. So yeah. Oh man, we'll have some questions about that. We'll get to that later. But
we're gonna have to dock you some points though for the IPA. It's
oh no, you anti-IPA?
Yeah, we're not big IPA guys over here.
It's okay.
If I had to do one
reference on, that's all right.
Yeah, if I had to do an IPA, I would definitely go the fruity side and not the pine tree side. I'm not a big pine tree IPA guy. Yeah, those are they taste like pine sol, smell like pine sol.
Yeah,
but that's us. We're stouts and porters and ale kind of guys. So, Jonathan, with that said, what do you have?
I have a Samuel Smith. I think I've had this one before. It is an oatmeal stout.
Okay.
You can see it in the camera. Yeah, nothing special. It's only 5%. So I got about 2 or 3 of these up here on the desk today. But it is it's nothing. Yeah, this Samuel Smith, old brewery, 1758. So a little history there.
Yeah,
they've been around.
Usually that's in a bottle, Samuel Smith. So
it is. This was a 4-pack, which cost me a small fortune.
Yeah, for sure. Even without the tariffs, right? So.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I've got. I have not had this one in a long time. They've updated their can, which I love the new branding. We were talking about branding last week, but this is the new Full Grown Man from Tubbs Brewery.
Full Grown Man.
This is an Imperial Stout, and it comes in at 12.2%. So I will see your 3 beers, Jonathan, in one glass. So
Jody, it looks like about 30 minutes into this, it'll just be us talking.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I did. Yeah. I listened to one of your previous podcasts, and I liked it when you had someone on who didn't drink at all, and which it was excellent because they then talked about. You asked why they didn't drink, and they said, and they just reeled out like this laundry list of awful things that happen when you drink. And when you got to the end of it, you just went, so we're drinking.
And we didn't feel guilty at all, right? I mean,
yeah, that was Dawn, I think, right? That was Dawn.
Yes,
she was on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, hey, somebody's got to keep the industry.
I mean, I respect that. I respect her reason why and her story, but I'm not. I understand, but
hey. Authenticity. We're going to talk about that today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know. With holding up the drinking side of things, it's come under attack from all sides.
Yes.
And I feel like some warriors have to carry on and fight the fight.
That's right.
Absolutely. So, all right. Well, let's cheers it up to a good show and learning about cults.
Cheers.
All right, and try not to die. Jody, I thought for sure you'd come on with Kool-Aid. Maybe a spiked, maybe Mike's Hard Lemonade spiked or something.
It's where it comes a free packet of it in every hard copy of the book.
That would be actually pretty.
Cool. Are you
serious?
With.
You put a packet of Kool-Aid in there?
It would be good. It's a good idea awesome, now that you're saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know a guy here that does shock and awe packages for books. He's been on the show that. Pack of Kool-Aid would be awesome to do like a box with the book for a course or something.
That would be awesome. Yeah,
you can do all kinds of fun stuff with that.
It's like the number 2 comment I get on whenever I post things about my book. It's like, what about the Kool-Aid? Or I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, or something else.
Yeah, so maybe that's the second book, like something with Kool-Aid in the title.
That's it.
So, all right, well, Jody, that's obviously you like Tiny Rebel as the brewery, and you probably had that one, but what do you rate that on a scale of 1 to 5 pints? You can use decimals, you can whatever you want.
I would give it a 3 out of 5.
Okay.
3 out of 5. It's all right. Yeah.
Just an average drinker.
Just average.
Kind of
Yeah.
thing, yeah. All right. Over on your end, Jonathan.
Yeah, nothing special here. Probably my least favorite, Samuel Smith. So
Okay.
I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay. I'm going to give this, it tastes different than I remember. And I think the last time I've had this has probably been 3 years, the Full Grown Man. But I'm going to give it a solid 4. Like for an imperial stout, it's what you would expect, especially at that 12%. It's a little, got a little bit of medicine-y, alcohol taste
12%, I would say so.
It's got a little of that to it, but it's not as bad. I don't think it's as bad as it used to be, though. It feels a little smoother than it used to.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it a solid 4.
It'll feel even more smooth after about 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, 20 more minutes. It's been how fast I drink it. Yeah.
That rating will go up.
Yeah, this is the greatest ever.
For rating in 30 minutes. Oh, it's awesome.
Give this a 5.
All right. Well, there we go. So pretty average scores, but hey, this is not an average episode, so we'll just transition that way.
Yep.
And Jody, the way we usually start, and we read your bio and things like that, but like, how in the world do you go? Where were you before? I guess 10 years ago you became a direct response copywriter, which is similar timeline to when I was 2009 when I went full time direct response copy, which I guess is longer than that now. But as far as man, that's been a long time. But anyway,
you said that like a veteran.
Old.
Oh
man, it's like I was like, wait, it's 2026 now. That's time is flying. Yeah. So before that, like, how did you end up here? Give us a little bit of the life story.
Were you a lawyer or you were trained in law?
No, I did law at university. Studied law, and when I came out, I had no real intention of doing law. I decided it was the thing that I wanted to do. My parents cried for a little bit, and then I decided to become a journalist and really chase the money with that one. And my parents cried again, and they haven't really forgiven me since. But so I basically went into journalism. English writing, it was always my thing. Like writing's always been my thing, and so it was kind of a natural thing for me to go into. I worked on various trade publications. I then worked in consumer press, in film and TV, which is great. When you love interviewing celebrities and you love interviewing actors and directors and doing all those kind of things. It's all very exciting and everything. But at some point, you kind of get over it, and it's quite difficult. Like back, I don't know what it's like now with the media, but back then, it was pretty toxic workplace, I would say. There was like regular shouting, equal amount of drinking, like hitting it hard and things like that. And I don't know what it is. I had some kind of like midlife crisis in my late 20s and decided, you know what I need to do right now? I need to go and start running marathons. That's the thing that I need to do. Run marathons just out of absolute nowhere. Yeah. And I started and I ran a London Marathon once. Did it again. It was awful, just awful. Like, but people coming up to me and saying you're all right, and I'm like, I'm absolutely fine. But yeah, just already awful. And then I don't know why else. Something in me after that made me decide that I wanted to do this really long Sahara race called the Marathon des Sables, which is like a 150-mile foot race where you carry all your stuff in Saharan heat. And I don't know what made me want to do that. I had to sign up 3 years earlier. You had to train for it. It was all kind of things. And it was really that is the thing that started it all, like this weird decision to do something like that, because then I switched my career in journalism from film and TV and went completely the other way into running. And I started writing for a magazine that was called Men's Running, very kind of focused on comedy, humor, like kind of very differentiated from Runner's World, which is all very serious about, this about PBs. This is basically the same stuff regurgitated every few months. Mm-hmm. And it was great, and it exposed me to lots of different things. But eventually, I moved out of that, and because especially if it's something like running, you get lots of people who will write for free, and they don't. They'll do race reports, they'll do kit things like that, and so just the money's not in there anymore. So that's when I decided I wanted to become a direct response copywriter. I couldn't find anywhere in the UK to do it. Like I couldn't, like, you think back then, there, in the US, it's just kind of a thing that was done, even though it wasn't like massively well done. You've got AWAI, you've got things like that. But in the UK, we just kind of didn't do it. And so it was only just feeling out different things. I eventually went to a copywriting conference in Las Vegas, where John Carlton was there. There was just this whole raft of like A-list copywriters, Kevin Rogers, Joseph Sugarman. It was like incredible. I didn't really appreciate it was there. And I got on John Carlton's copywriting course, which was really hard to do because he's like a cantankerous old man who doesn't really want to work and doesn't really understand customer service and things like that. So I managed to squeeze my way onto that eventually after bugging people for a huge amount of time. And then I just seemed to kind of quite naturally kind of go with it and fall to it and all of that. And so that was my trajectory. Like I was writing for clients. Getting on the direct response train and everything, but the part of me kind of missed the kind of that running side of it, that thing. And so when I was doing I did one of the things I was sent to do when I was working for Men's Running Magazine. The thing is with Men's Running Magazine is that because it was kind of a humorous magazine, I wasn't treated as a serious runner in any way. I was like a joke who they'd send out, like sometimes on like local news, they've got someone who is sent out to do the amusing stories who, in movies, they always go, oh, they never take me seriously. I just need my big break. Like that was me, essentially. And so they sent me out to Sierra Leone to do a marathon. And I'm like, what? There's a marathon in Sierra Leone, which is like this horrifically ravaged country that has all sorts of problems. And no one has I met someone who was organising it for the charity there, and his name was David, and we kind of hit it off. We're quite kindred spirits. And after we came back and the magazine, and I'd left like the magazine and everything, we'd just meet up and we'd talk about running and those kind of things. And that really was the birth of the podcast, because we just thought, well, we're both working, we're both busy. What can we do? Do we do a blog? Should we do something? It feels like we need to do something. And we're like, well, let's just do like the bare minimum we can do. And the bare minimum was just to sit down. I was in my front room. He was in, I think, his shared office at the time. And let's just record stuff and see what happens. And we were doing it on Skype at the time as well. And wow. And it was pretty awful. We record and he'd say something like ridiculously libelous, like accuse someone of taking drugs or things like that, and I'll be like, oh my god, like so we'd have to go back and edit it and all that. And eventually we got enough episodes, we released it, and it kind of like ticked along, and people started listening, and we started feeding back to us that they quite liked it. But I tried to make it a little bit more professional by editing like all of my ums and ahs. I'm a terrible speaker, and so but then there was like, oh no, don't do that, because it actually ruins it, because you kind of stumbling over words and doing that is part of how you sound. And so we'd even apologize. We'd put an apology at the start of the first 8 episodes for how bad the sound quality was, and it almost became like this kind of joke that like we just didn't care about the sound, but all the things that they tell you to do, like even like planning the episodes, because the biggest podcast at the time was something called Marathon Talk, and Marathon Talk was like right up here. There weren't a huge amount of podcasts running, and they prepared their episodes. They got really good guests on. You could see that there was like a huge amount of preparation, and we're like, we're definitely not going to do that. We're not. There's no way we're going to do that.
You're definitely a kindred spirit with us.
Absolutely.
The origin story is very similar to this.
Really, absolutely. But so we just did. So actually, the thing that really it was the constraint. We were like, we've only got a couple of hours a week to do this. Mm-hmm. So how do we do it? It's like, right, we record it. We don't bother editing it. We just put it out, and that's it. Like we kind of just go like that, and we just keep apologizing to people for various things, and we don't. We don't necessarily even spend time researching stuff. We just talk about it, because that's kind of what it's like when you go and sit in a pub. You don't go and sit with your friends and go, I've come here with prepared arguments so we can have a discussion about these things. You kind of talk intuitively, and you go, well, no, is that true? Isn't that true? It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, that's why we bring guests on, because then we don't have to prepare. We just let the guests talk.
Absolutely.
that's exactly it.
Easier just to throw some questions their way.
Yeah.
But then it kind of started to catch. So, we thought we're not even going to make it to 100 episodes, but we're only really just looking at the next episode, and the kind of thing that really kind of made it take off is the fact that we just thought, well, we're never going to get sponsorship, we're never going to do anything, so we can talk about whatever we want. And that's the thing that really kind of made it catch. And because it was so different, it was so unprofessional, and it felt so authentic, and we were talking about things that other people were never talking about. We were talking about we'd celebrate the fact that if you didn't even start a race, we're like, the real winners are people who didn't actually run. Like, we hated running. That was the thing. That was like where we were coming from. And then when we got I see, like, you can see us there with it, with us standing on the Eurostar drinking beers, which no runner would ever be seen doing. Like, this idea that we're actually on the way to the Beer Lovers Marathon in Belgium, which is an incredible marathon with incredible beers.
Even though they all do it.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's it. But it's like, running communities are like toxic. There's just all this toxic positivity, all about, oh, like, I smashed this, I smashed that. You come into our community, and it would be like, if someone had posted a PB, they'd be banned. They'd be ridiculed. Like, and someone said, I drank too much, I couldn't turn up for the race, so I spent it on the sofa. They get the biggest cheer. And it was good. It was partly covering up our own complete failures, but just something about it. And when we launched that community, because we were very clear on things that we didn't like and things that we were against, and it had a really strong identity, it kind of became self-sustaining almost immediately. We didn't have to, when people think about community, like, oh, I've got to feed it with content, I've got to, really try and get engagement going until it catches. But people really clear on what to talk about, how to talk about it with each other, because everyone had a real sort of shared sense of identity that they were runners who just didn't take running seriously. That was our kind of core message. And
how did let's back up just a little bit. Like, how did the name come about? When did it come about? Before the first episode, or did it kind of evolve with the first couple episodes?
This is not a great brand story, I've got to say. It came about
well, that's right on brand then, right?
Exactly. It came about an hour before we submitted it to iTunes, where we were going to launch it, because we just couldn't think of a name. And David came up with Bad Boy Running. I had the idea it was going to be red. I knew that the thing was going to be red because I'd looked at all the other podcast covers, and they were all kind of really muted colors. And I thought red will really stand out. So he said Bad Boy Running. I'm like, that is an awful name, but we couldn't think of anything better. So we launched it with that. And that has been the bane of our lives since, because it's constantly us going, right, yeah, it's 50% women. It is 50% women. It's not just, we came up with this thing about, Bad Boy Running is an attitude. It's not not talking about that. Every decision we made was intuitive, and we retrospectively had to kind of explain it somehow as though it was intentional. That's kind of how it's worked.
So you're hanging out with your buddy. You kind of looking for something to do. You met him running. You started this podcast. It was very similar to what Jonathan and I did. We used to talk about sales and marketing on Fridays when we could at a local Casual Pints, what it was called. We don't have real pubs here, so it's more like a chain pub.
Yep.
And we're like, this would make a good podcast. They're like, yeah, it would. So, same kind of story. Ours didn't blow up the way yours did, I don't think, but that's cool. So you started this. When did you realize? I guess what was the tipping point where you realized this was at cult level as opposed to just a podcast that people enjoyed? Where did you start hearing from that?
It's really funny. I'd compartmentalized it in my mind. So at the same time, I was, as a direct response copywriter, I'd also started an agency. So I was helping businesses, grow. I was hoping grow businesses. I hope and build brands. I was doing it. I'm doing it all sort of the conventional way, the way that we're told to do it. And for some reason, I compartmentalize of this is work and this is a fun thing I'm doing. And the two things can't in any way mean anything to each other, because of course they won't. I don't have time to do all the brand stuff with this, and I don't, I can't see how this funny little silly little podcast thing that we're doing is gonna work. And it wasn't really until it kind of the thing is, the momentum of it built up without really realizing. So when I say accidental, I mean it really was accidental, that we were just doing the right things over and over again, and it was built like we'd never ever invited anyone into our Facebook group. No one. We never went and invited it. Everyone who's invited to that Facebook was invited by someone else. They'd gone out and recruited more people. They'd seen like this is the. They'll go out and they'll bring 5 people in and go, oh, you've got to see this. Whether that's you've got to see this absolute shit show, or you've got to kind of see what this is all about.
Hey, either way.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and a lot of that's to do with the fact that we were, we had very clear kind of enemies. We're very kind of us and them type thing against other running groups, against cyclists. We would say we're not anti-cyclist thing. We just think they're cheats because they're using it's like AI or something.
Wheels, yeah.
So we have these really clear ideas that allow people to interact with it, and it wasn't until we'd done all the merch thing. The merch thing really took off better than I expected. I had this idea of doing merch, but I didn't expect us to sell the amount we sold, which was a bit of an issue because I hadn't priced it all properly. Very casually, we lost about a couple of £1,000 because of me getting postage wrong and all sorts of stuff. Just disastrous, absolutely disastrous. But it was when I was working in a shared office, and there were a lot of other businesses there, and there was a chamber of commerce there, business organization, and I was wearing one of our hoodies, and on the hoodie it said something like I think it's this one here. It's like crushing disappointment is earned, not given. And they knew that it was a running podcast, and they're like, what? Like, that's a very negative phrase to have on there. It's not kind of the motivational phrase you expect. I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what the podcast is about. Now, you obviously you've grown a community. Why don't you come and do a presentation to the other businesses? So and I think they were thinking I was going to come up with like, oh yeah, here are like 5 top tips in order to kind of do this thing. And I thought, you know what, with classic copywriter hat on, I was like, how do I make this really interesting? And so I gave it the title, How to Start a Cult. And I thought it'd be really funny to map the things that a cult have to what we have. And it was at that point when I started doing that, I realized, oh, I tell you what, it is very, very close. There's a lot of things here that we've done that if you were starting a real cult, you would do. But and I don't know what that says about direct response background and being a copywriter, that we draw on those things intuitively and just quite naturally, and it kind of went from there. Like, I did that presentation, I then was invited to bigger presentations, then did a huge workshop at an event, and it became the book, and it kind of ran from that, and it made me realize that this thing that we built in 2 hours a week, that we built very intuitively. Like, looking back, it makes sense. Of course, we think about it's brand positioning, but we never thought, oh, like, let's do a brand positioning exercise in order to do that. We just thought, okay, this is where it fits in the market, because we knew the market. And all of the things that we did intuitively just led us to the point of it doing this. And I just thought, why am I struggling so much with all these things over here, doing it the conventional way, when actually we've managed to do it in 2 hours a week by focusing on the right things, by focusing on that consistency of broadcast and having that clarity of message in there, and that real sense of polarization and that differentiation, and then also having a really strong relationship with our audience, going deeper, rather, because we thought we're never going to have a big audience. It's never going to be huge because of the nature of thing, but we can go really, really deep with them.
Sure.
And to the extent that we turn people into the community into heroes. Like, we talk about them. There's stories about people know about other people in that community who they've never met before, and then we'll talk about them to other people. So it was just a much better way of doing it. And when I switched over to using that with the business I work and the brands I work with, everything just got so much easier.
Yeah. So this book was written in 2021. So
Yep.
when did you first kind of stumble on this idea? Like how long before the book? Was it a year? Was it 6 years? Was it like about?
It took about, I would say I did the workshop about a year before I turned it into a book, until I had enough for that. And then I wrote the book. I've been playing with the ideas. I've been talking to people about it. I've been bringing the ideas into business. I knew which ones were more popular. The ideas were more popular. People love the talking about the enemies. They love talking about those things. No matter which business, like it has enemies, and once you get people going, it starts really kind of firing ideas. And it must have been about a year after that, and then I took about 6 weeks to write it, and then about 8 months to edit it, and then, I mean, even the launch of it was something, because I thought about how can I do something that would prove the power of a cult while I'm selling a book about cults. And so I had it in my mind. We've got there's a singer here, an elderly singer, called Cliff Richard. And Cliff Richard always would have a Christmas number one. And I thought, I don't know why I had it in my head. I thought, you know what? I want to be Christmas number one in the book charts, in sales and marketing, in the things. So I had this idea of, why don't I get all the people in the community to kind of rally behind and create this launch? And I created this strange kind of launch where, again, it was like really, really personal. I built this launch, involved people in the launch team, split them into groups that would then compete with each other, gave them all animal names, which they thought meant something, and it didn't at all, but it kind of added to the intrigue. And it turned it, again, even like that, turned into something. Like most people, when they go through a launch and they drag their customers and clients into it, people are just exhausted, and it's like, this is awful, and we're doing it because we like you, and everyone feels exhausted. And I was asking people on Christmas Eve to stop what they're doing, making dinner and talking to their family, and go and buy this book. And they did it. And I tell you what, it's like, again, that was a revelation, because people thanked me, and they were saying, this has been absolutely brilliant. Like, this has been enjoyable. Just to see how we've all kind of worked together to get it up the charts and get it to number one. There's just so much chat with it, and they wanted to do it again. And that's been the characterization of it. Like, whenever we've asked people, the involvement that people want to have with it is incredible. We go to, as a result of this, we do the National Running Show every year. We have a stage at the National Running Show, and we take volunteers, and they thank us for allowing us to volunteer for us for free over a weekend at their own expense, because they just feel so strongly part of it, and they're happy going and speaking to people. And when you build something like that, when you build something on that strength of belonging, like, the lengths people will go for you and go for your to kind of support people in the community, support you, is incredible.
Yeah. And so let's dive into that, because I mean, basically what we've covered here is, how you accidentally stumbled into this and created all that.
Yep.
You have a belief about brand loyalty. So let's cover that real quick. And then I want to get into, your book kind of revolves around these seven commandments. You couldn't have 10. That would be too that
would be absolutely
correct. So you need to have more or less. You can't do the same.
Well, Mark says everything's going to end in 7, hasn't it? So it's
got to be a 7. Yeah, it's got to be 7 or 3, right? One of the two. Yeah, 3 just doesn't sound meaty enough, right? So, so you talk about brand loyalty, and as a brand guy, as a guy who writes copy, helps people with their brands, what are you seeing about brands, that makes what we're about to talk about so important?
So much of what brands do is focus on the benefit or the outcome or the transformation, and that's what they're told to do. Like, whenever they are communicating what they're doing, or they're trying to quite loosely create a feeling around something that communicates that outcome. The problem is that in the market and the way it is today, that we've seen, especially with something like AI, how quickly people can get disrupted, how quickly that, no matter how convenient you are, how good your service is, no matter how cheap you are, you are going to struggle if benefit is the basis on which you build your entire brand, and you communicate with,
which is pretty crazy, because even now, a lot of the direct response copywriting principles, it's still talking about feature versus benefit, right?
Yeah,
got to do benefits, not features. You still got to have the features, but benefit, you got to turn them into benefits, right?
Yeah.
But now, what I hear you saying, and I agree, is that now there's another level that we've got to get to, because those aren't enough anymore, which makes sense, because
that's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it. Yeah, we're in a most markets are so sophisticated that you have to do something pretty impressive. It's funny, when you were talking earlier about, with AI, becoming a cult leader would be a pretty good way of, ensuring your success, because there's only one thing that cannot be disrupted, and that is people who have an allegiance to you. That right. It's impossible for you to be to replicate it. But for brands and for business trying to communicate and trying to do something, you have to build it on something else. And so if you're not building a brand on something like benefit, the transformation, then you've got to build it on something else. And this is where cults do it very, very well, because they base this on identity.
Right.
And identity is the key to building belonging. That's the key. Like when you become part of someone's identity, when wearing your brand or wearing something that your brand represents is a key part of someone's identity, like, you're never going to be disrupted. You're never going to suffer from someone else, because to tear a piece of someone's identity away from them is like the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so difficult to extricate people from cults, why they have to be deprogrammed, and that's it. So and we see today, like, there are building that element of identity and connecting identity and pulling people together with who share an identity, and putting the elements in place in order to do that is key. And that is really where how you develop that sense of belonging. You don't create belonging. Like, belonging is not something you can just go, okay, I'm gonna create belonging by using these tactics or this strategy. You have to create that sense of identity first before belonging shows up, as it were.
But you do believe it can be done intentionally?
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing. It's your job as a brand or a business to put those pillars in place, and those pillars really revolve around, like, those commandments I'm talking about. But the kind of key thing is it's building a kind of a lightning rod for that identity, which is basically the first command about developing a polarizing message. But then also putting the structure in place, and that structure that builds that belonging and builds those beliefs.
Let's talk about
what businesses are good at this. I was just thinking about this is network marketing companies, right?
Oh, great. Yeah.
I mean, they must have read like the cult handbook on that, because they're so good about, like, that's what it's all about, is community. And then they isolate, obviously they isolate people to a degree, and then there's the common enemy. So there's a lot of these things going to play. I just thought about that. Like,
because for network marketing companies, the hierarchy is so important.
That's right.
Like, cults are built on hierarchy, and it's about, firstly, like, creating a pathway that people can see and see others climbing as well, so they know how to.
Oh, yeah. And they buy in, man. These people drink the Kool-Aid 100%.
Well, that's it. And that's where it gets manipulative, because then, of course, you have that situation where there's status attached to that, and then people fear losing that status. And that's where you have those those situations with network marketing companies where people are just buying, like, garage fulls of their own product in order to make the sale, so that they can stay at those levels.
Yeah, and those levels are powerful, right? Whether they use jewelry, like gemstones, or they use, whatever nomenclature they use for. I mean, I'm thinking of like Amway or whatever it's called these days.
Yeah.
Like, you have your ruby, your emerald, your diamonds, double diamonds, triple diamonds, all the way up the ladder. Like, those are surprisingly powerful, and so few companies use those. Types of things,
and that's the thing. You see people go, oh, we'll install a loyalty scheme, and the more you spend, then the more rewards you get. But that's fundamentally misunderstanding the reason why people want to belong to a brand or want to be part of the brand, because it's not just about that transactional thing. Like how does someone show that they are genuinely connected with the brand, that they're genuinely devoted to it, that they're committed to that identity? Because it's not always transactional. It may be putting time into volunteer. It might be doing something that goes above and beyond. It might be helping organize other, but there are so many other things, and that's the problem with that loyalty aspect, is that it's very, very transactional, and it misses the point.
Right now in the US, I don't know if you guys have Subway sub shops over there.
Yeah.
I guess they're probably international at this point, but their current promotion here anyway is, buy three subs, get the fourth sub free. It's everywhere, especially on this, sports and things like that. So it's basically, 25% discount, right?
Yeah.
And it's but even then, like you said, it's very transactional. And I wonder if somewhere like Subway, if they were to create a persona around someone who eats a lot of subs, maybe there was levels, like there's sub apprentice, sub master, sub, whatever, like where you
subatomic. That's the highest level. That's the
that's nuclear. Yeah, exactly. Like just like, and you could somehow. But the reason that works is because other people in the community see it. The problem with like rewards card is nobody knows except you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you got to figure out a way like you want them to be able to show off to other people that are in the same community. I mean, I think that's the payoff, right? And Facebook is trying to do this, bless their hearts. Like they try to do it with like the top fan badge and like these other little things, but they just don't pull it off quite right.
No.
Yeah.
But at least, hey, I'll give them credit. They're trying. But is that the kind of stuff you're talking about? Like people within the community need to, you're kind of showing off for each other because they're your people.
The thing is, when you develop that sense of a community and it's based around identity, people start, if you don't put a hierarchy in place, people start organizing themselves into a hierarchy. There will always be people who come out and will naturally want to lead more, and they will want to organize more. And one of the things that we found with the community in the podcast was we didn't have time to do any of the things. All you got this big long checklist of things that you could do to build community and things like that, but we didn't have time to do it. So, and I don't know why it happened, but people just started going and naturally doing things which spread the word. Things like they would go to say multi-day races, and they'd set up a stand, which would be, or they'd go to an ultra race, and different ultra races they'd have food stations, and they'd set up a food station which would all be decked out in bad boy running stuff. They'd all be wearing stuff, and they would kind of weirdly try and recruit people. At which we were like, okay, that's, I don't know how you're doing that when someone's like 90 miles into a 100-mile run, but get them when they're down. When
they're weak and delirious.
But part of that though is they're rebelling against status quo, like everybody else. Thing. I mean, they want to rebel.
But that's exactly it. You're going to hit the nail on the head there, is that because the identity is so strong, and the identity is so, because they're putting themselves in a position where they're talking about, we're proud of being different. Like we're proud of being different for a lot. We're not like super fast runners. We don't take money seriously. We have lives. We have families. We like drinking. We're not going to kind of give up those things in order to kind of knock 3 seconds off my 10K time. But that was underrepresented. That didn't kind of exist. So when we'd show up, it would be really, really obvious. Like the whole reason we went to the running show in the first place was because it's quite running brands are boring as hell. It's always the same stuff. I know what we'll do. It's like literally every running brand manager just goes, do you know what we need? We need a picture of a skinny runner running across some rocks. And people are like, oh, that's brilliant. Like why don't we think of that? Because that's what every single running brand. Oh, we need some untouchably good runner promoting our stuff, because that's going to make it mass market. It's always the same thing. So when you have a bunch of kind of people that don't really look like runners, which is one of the kind of big issues, showing up at a run show dressed in red, which looks weird as anything, with a big keg of beer, which like no one expected, then and getting people to do kind of a version of beer pong in order to win prizes. It's totally different. It totally disrupts everything, and people want to be associated with that. People, it's that kind of like that element of punk that, and again, this was never intentional. Like, I never thought, oh, do you know what, we're going to really kind of disrupt the industry or anything else like that. It was just because that's who we were, and there were people who did not fit into those other communities who were presumably just sat there waiting for us to create it. And I think that's so true of so many communities. There were people out
like
there who don't have a home.
The pure runners, they probably thumb their nose. I mean, they look down their nose at like these other.
Well, I mean, I think of like I know she's a sprinter, but Gabby Thomas comes to mind. Like, right? I mean, she's beautiful. She's an Olympic athlete. She graduated from Harvard. Like, she's like a perfect human being almost. Like, it's insane that one person can do all those things, and it's like so intimidating. But that's the people the running magazines want to talk to, right?
Yeah,
they don't want to talk to Bob.
No, they don't. They don't. They'll sometimes
who literally bobs while he runs.
That's it. They'll sometimes talk to Bob because if Bob's got a funny story, and every now and then they go, oh, we need some kind of inclusion, and we'll kind of do that in a token way. But then we'll quickly get rid of Bob and pretend that never happened, and get the skinny, beautiful runners back on again. But there was a very good point you made there about intimidation, because the other thing that we found, and I think this is the problem with a lot of things, is that because there was that kind of that toxic positivity and that need to do that, people were feeling intimidated, and so by completely and again, this is another accident, by shifting it to focusing on lack of achievement and lack of ambition, people just seem to be able to open up about how difficult it was to run, or how they struggled. And weirdly, because of that, people started running more and doing bigger races and going further and achieving things, and then thanking us for the fact that they'd done them. And again, it wasn't intentional. We keep trying to tell it wasn't intentional, but it was just that realization that taking that shame out of it, that all these other things created. And so many brands, so many businesses just need to understand that there are lots of people out there. There are lots of people who could be part of their base, could be part of their community, who are not represented properly by brands, because brands, just so many of them in different, they just look the same, they act the same, they do everything the same, they don't have a different relationship, they make assumptions all the time about their audiences without really exploring, like, what is the different thing to do here, who else is there. And I mean, that goes to the heart of how Silicon Valley businesses disrupt. Netflix, they thought, okay, there's a bunch of people out there who haven't got a Blockbuster near them. I know what we'll do. We'll post them DVDs, and suddenly created. But because Blockbuster didn't think about those people, no one thought about those people, but they did. This is the same thing. You tap into those. You could tap into those communities. You could tap into those people who are looking for something different, for that sense of community.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, there's three things I wrote down on a little note card here as I was going through the book, and that I wanted to talk about. One is just your understanding. We hinted at this earlier, but one is you talk about authenticity, and that's kind of a buzzword right now, and everybody's trying to be authentic, and you kind of have a different take on that.
Yeah, I hate authentic. I just hate. I can't stand. The thing is it's one thing where I can't stand the word. I can't stand the way that it's used in marketing. I can't stand the way that it's used as a strategy. And yet, it's the thing that I talk about most than anything else. It's just so. It's the thing about it is that be authentic is a terrible piece of advice, because you either are authentic or you're not. Like, you're never going to be truly authentic. You're never going to go out and say everything that you really think or do. There's going to be some element of it, but like the big issue that people have is that they are worried about what people think about them. They are worried about that their views are going to be minority views. They're worried that if they stand on a pedestal, then people are going to take them down. And they're right, that is going to happen. And the difficulty is that so many, I mean, so many brands play it safe. It's almost painful to watch them. Like, as soon as, I don't know how much it happens in the US, but anytime a brand comes up against someone, go, oh, these pair of shoes look like, there was a thing in the UK where a pair of shoes were released, trainers, and they looked a bit like irons, and someone accused this company of being sexist, and the brand, I mean it's so ridiculous, and they caved in and they withdrew them. Like, if they stood up and told them to grow up and don't be so ridiculous, they're a pair of shoes, and maybe you're the sexist one for thinking that
for even making that conclusion. It's obviously,
I mean,
it's the same with, like, we see comedians, right, that they'll tell a joke that pushes the boundary, and the ones that cave, everybody loses respect for. But the ones
absolutely, every time,
the ones that stick to it, like a Dave Chappelle, they're like, his next thing sells out, his next tour sells out. Like, people don't realize that if you just stand your ground, like, people are dying for people to stand their ground.
Absolutely.
And what when people hear about that, they think it's about being confrontational, it's about being controversial. It's not about those things. It's about, I'm communicating something that I believe, and the fact is that there are people who are following you. There are people in your audience who also believe that thing, but you're the first person that has said that. You're the first person that's vocalized it, and you've vocalized it for them. And they're like, oh, thank goodness you have actually said the thing that needs to be said. No, you've exposed the elephant in the room. You've done that. So when you go back on that, like, people feel betrayed. People feel like you said that thing and now you've not done it. And I think that's one of the hardest things to understand, that it's not just about going out and communicating a message or being bold or being different. Like, you have to really lean into it. You have to celebrate it. And that means you get criticism. You hit it head on. You hit that criticism. You understand what the big objections are at you, and you use them to attract more people. Like, the nature of our podcast and the nature of our community and the nature of a lot of the brands that I work with, they have some element of contrarianness about them. They do something, and so when people are negative about them, write negative reviews and things like that, most brands would go, oh, what's the communication strategy for this? What do we do? How do we kind of manage this? They're like, I tell you how you manage it. You tell them that they're wrong and you explain why they're wrong. And then, it depending on what your tone of voice is, or what your brand, authentic brand voice is supposed to be, you ridicule them or you use it to your advantage. We very, very early on got very negative reviews, but they were funny. They were really, like, people would say things like, it's just like two idiots giggling, talk about money. My dog, I've got more insight talking to my dog about architecture than you two talking about athletics. Like, brilliant quotes like that. So what happens with those? They go on flags. They go on social media posts. We post them everywhere. They go on stickers. Like, I've got some stickers here. Like, we had stickers here, pair of idiots giggling. And not only does it really clearly defines what we're about, and really clearly defines who we want and who we don't want, but it strengthens the relationship. The people who are in your audience, they love that. They love the fact that that you're being criticized and you're standing up for it. And I think that is one big aspect of it, is that brands take a position. I mean, we see like so many brands take a position on some environmental thing or whatever, and some of them they totally cave under any pressure. They don't really mean it. And then you get brands who are cult brands like Patagonia, who actually, like, they live it. It hurts them to live the route to take and support. But that's why they have such strong feelings. They are immovable in defending their position and defending their position on behalf of their audience as well.
That reminds me, Liquid Death. How they took all the negative comments and they made songs out of them. Like, this is crappy, expensive water, and they would just sing like all of the negative stuff that they were getting.
Awesome. Yeah, there's a Brewdog in the UK. They did that. They put all their like negative TripAdvisor reviews on the backs of the t-shirts that the staff wore. They're like, bar full of hipsters and things like that, and really, really good at leaning into that criticism and understanding that that's a good thing. You can really benefit from it.
Yeah.
And I think with when we think of a lot of cult brands and a lot of brands that want to kind of achieve that cult status, just a lot of it comes down to just being different and simply just doing something that you wouldn't expect brands to do would be enough to differentiate you from anyone else. It's so simple. Just even at that kind of highest, most superficial level, it is so simple to stand out. But really, what it comes down to backbone. It comes down to all of the human emotion that goes around it about safety and security, and we might damage our brand. It's like you haven't got a brand. Like you haven't got a brand if you're not taking a position. It's not good. It's not going to be strong enough. You have to You have to work much harder.
Well, this is kind of in that realm, not exactly, but I want to talk about the enemy a little bit, because I think a lot of people get this wrong.
Yeah.
And one of the things I saw in your book about an enemy, it's not necessarily your competition or even a person, but you mentioned, and I hadn't seen this distinction before, but even a practice or a process could be the enemy. It doesn't have to be a brand or your competition. Like,
no.
Tell us a little bit more about enemies and how to choose an enemy.
Well, one of the big characterizations of a cult, as you know, is an us versus them mentality. And the way that most people understand that is, we're trying to kind of separate you from other people. We're trying to create this kind of conflict, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. So an enemy can be anything that is important to your followers, and hopefully it aligns with something that's important to you, but it causes an issue that they are concerned about, or that is either causing them a chronic pain. It could be something that's very, very serious, or it could be something that is kind of like a minor annoyance. And you can have a whole range of enemies. You can have an organization, for example, could be an enemy. Like lots of people think, like bookstores think Amazon's the enemy. That's the kind of the big evil giant. That's the Death Star that they have to fight against. And it can go anything from really kind of minor annoyances. People not giving your lighter back or something when you're when you've had a cigarette or things like that. And that's the thing. Having an enemy isn't about kind of throwing rocks at people. It's about standing on the side of your followers and being with them and showing them that you understand the things that they are struggling with. And it's also a really, really effective way, especially that element of practices, beliefs, other things, of criticizing or going after say bigger enemies, like established opposition or established businesses, without actually directly attacking them. So Netflix did this very well, and Liquid Death does this very well as well. So Netflix, they could attack Blockbuster, but the problem is Blockbuster at that time, they were very, very popular. Like people loved Blockbuster. But so Netflix, if they directly attacked them, they could run the risk of doing that. So what do they attack? They attack late fees, knowing that late fees were the thing that was keeping Blockbuster basically in profit. If they attack late fees and built up this kind of issue with it, and say that the thing is that we don't have that, it's a big Liquid Death. They attack plastic. They know that all of their competitors in water are so wedded to plastic, they can't get rid of plastic. It's impossible for them to get rid of plastic. So instead of criticizing individual brands, they just go really hard on that, because it's a really strong idea. It's a really strong point, and it's something that you genuinely think that they care about, and they put money behind, and they genuinely do that. And so that's the thing to think about. It doesn't necessarily have to be like your direct competitor or bullying someone. It's not that at all. It's about showing that level of empathy and understanding of what your followers are going through. Like what is difficulty for your followers? Like, and I know that people really struggle with this. It's one of the big things that people struggle with. But when they start thinking about it, there are so many enemies to think about. Like, I think the example I use in the book is I worked with an organization who they were Buddhists, and it was all about Buddhist prayer. And they were like, "Oh, we can't possibly find any enemies. We haven't got any enemies at all." And after a few minutes of opening up, there were about 120 enemies on that whiteboard. They kind of went for it because they kind of understood, oh yeah, that, you know, it's about practice, it's about things that people are taught. It might be the way things are done. And going back to the point of, you know, standing your ground, you take a position, stand your ground. You know, talking about enemies, talking about those things that people have not communicated before, they've not spoken up with before, are really, really good ways of doing it. Every industry, every market has something that people aren't talking about, like, you know, because someone's scared to stand up and do it. And if you just are that person, you're the person who brings attention, then, you know, there are people ready to line up behind you and you know, follow you, because you have taken the step that they wish they'd have taken.
So for Bad Boy Running, the enemy was the traditional.
It was people who take running too seriously. People who acted like gatekeepers for running. People who said that, you know, if you walk during a marathon, then you're not a runner. Which is insane. You know, we did have, and that was kind of the core enemy. That was the core thing, and it also, that was, you know, it became like our key kind of polarizing message. But then we had the kind of the fun enemies, like, you know, we had these buffs made, which were these anti-cycling buffs that, you know, people could buy, which you know, were very popular. And it was just these kind of little things like that, you know, allow people to communicate with each other, but, you know, within the group as well, that allowed you. And that I think that's the kind of the core thing about getting the enemies right, is that firstly, it attracts attention. It attracts lots of attention, and it shows people, you know, who you are and who you're for. But it also gives kind of parameters that allow people to know what to talk about between each other. So like, when you get people into a community, people are normally like, oh, I, you know, don't really know what to do here. But if you're like, these are the enemies, these are the things we stand for, these are the things that we think about, then people then start, you know, they've got a set of parameters to go, these are the things that we're going to be, you know, talking about here, and they can bring that, and that makes it much easier for communication, for interaction, for, you know, actually like starting to develop the relationships within a community in the first place.
I like how you went after both runners who were too serious, and then also you went after cyclists, which any runner could go against.
Yeah.
You know, so you there's kind of a spectrum there that you know, you, in some ways, you've got the very enemies that you've created are also your friends when you talk about the cyclist.
Yeah.
It's very War of Art kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing was, you know, we had we'd use this to our advantage. And again, this is something very, very important with cults, is that you need to show people who convert, people who you have managed to convert. We had 3 people in our group who were triathletes, and that is like a step worse than cyclists for us. So they all had nicknames. There was Deepaw, KJ, and Deepaw as well, and we successfully rehabilitated them, so they all ended up running ultras in the end, and it became just this really funny narrative about how, you know, they stopped doing triathlons, they tried starting doing ultras, they started doing like different races and things like that. But it's about identifying like those opportunities and those stories as well. That's the other thing. Like, you know, it's about holding that idea of an enemy quite loosely and understanding the different ways in which you can use it, rather than thinking, okay, this is something we're against, we have to battle against. You know, how can we use this in different ways to communicate what we're about and what we do? Because really, at heart, like, even though we're like massively negative and we're kind of like anti-running, everything that we do is really quite positive. But we don't kind of like say that. I mean, I don't know if that's a British thing, but we would never kind of say that. It's just people get that sense out of it, because that is what eventually happens, and that's how people feel. And I think for some businesses and brands, when they're kind of developing how they want their followings to be, how they want the community to be, they don't have that confidence that they can do that. They have to try and go route one. They have to go like, we need people to feel positive about, and so what we'll do is we'll feed them positive messages, and we'll do that. And like, people are more sophisticated than that. Like, you can't do that anymore. And so I think it's just about having real confidence about what you're doing and making sure that you're putting the right things in place.
You know, one brand that comes to mind, they've been around for a while now, and they kind of came up, I think, like during the 90s or maybe before that, but Despair Inc. Are you familiar with them?
No, I'm not.
So Despair Inc. I guess 80s, 90s. You remember these guys, Jonathan? I mean, you're in sales.
Despair. Yeah, because they came up with a lot of the
they came up with these really like beautiful, like anti-motivational posters.
Yeah. I remember
put
that.
in, like,
yes.
Yeah.
I do. Yes, I've seen those. Yes.
With the black background and the great photography that you saw in like corporate offices in the 90s. And and they went the opposite way. They were like, they put these like,
they were hilarious.
Things that were like blame or, like just crazy stuff. And I just pulled them up. They're still around. But I mean, that's a great example of like this cult, like the enemy of toxic positivity for them is I guess that's who they would be. And that was before it was called toxic positivity. It was just like really, it was more like, I guess back then it probably was over the top positivity or something, or, something like that. But they come to mind for sure. And sure enough, they seem to still be around selling artwork and calendars and everything else.
I think what they do is that they're kind of speaking to something, which is an understanding of how humans are and human psychology. Is that I don't know who in the corporate world or the marketing world has said, the way that we get people to really like work together is to put up a poster about teamwork, because that is going to definitely work. Rather than thinking how do we actually incentivize this? How do we understand how we get people to work together in a certain way? That kind of hits the nail on the head, is the fact that just not having the confidence in understanding how human beings interact with each other and using psychology. I know that you guys talk about influence a lot, and really the amount of elements of starting a cult, and really everything, so much is owed to Cialdini and what he did with influence,
right?
But the level of understanding of that and the level at which it is applied is shockingly bad. And like these like really kind of basic elements of that, like the levels of getting people to commit and be consistent, demonstrating social proof. Some people use it like a checkbox without really understanding how those elements are supposed to work together to really understand it. And then when you bring in that element of unity as well, which I think is completely misunderstood by most businesses, then you can build something absolutely incredible. You can build something, and it just, I don't even think it's that hard to do. I think it's a lot of it is just to do with how prepared people are to really stand out and make that decision to be bold.
So let me ask this, because it feels like this is pretty simple for a brand with a brand name to do. How can individuals do this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where the business is themselves, like a Tony Robbins. Like, I don't see him doing this. Not that he just puts a lot of money behind everything he does.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really play even though he's kind of got a cult following, I don't think he utilizes the stuff we're talking about. Right.
No,
I don't think he doesn't really need
well,
to.
He had to start one in the beginning, but I mean,
but I don't think he ever used these type of techniques.
No,
I think one, he was early in the industry. That was a big piece of it, right? But how is there any difference, Jody, with like individuals versus like a brand like Bad Boy, where there's not necessarily a one person that's the face?
I think doing it individually, doing it, say a cult personal brand is far easier.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think
it feels harder to me when I think about it, but I'm curious. So I'm curious why you say that.
Well, it depends. Because you can't hide, and I think that's what makes it the challenging thing. Actually, putting the things in place is relatively easy. Like coming up with we haven't talked what the commandments are. Like commandment 1, develop a polarizing message. Commandment 2, pick an enemy. Commandment 3, thou shalt be different and celebrate it. Those are the 3 kind of strategic elements that form the backbone to it. And if you get those right, everything else falls into place. Everything gets much easier. When you're a business or a brand, collectively you can decide, make a decision and kind of hide behind that. When you're an individual, the decisions that you make are very, very public. They're very, they're connected with you. And I think the challenge isn't necessarily doing those things, isn't necessarily choosing those things, because I think most people will have a polarizing message that they want to say. The challenge is most people want to say a polarizing message, but also say it in a way that doesn't offend anyone and doesn't upset, which completely negates the point of it being polarizing.
Right. Doesn't affect their personal life.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think that's that personal and business, especially when you build a personal brand, personal and business feels very, very connected.
Yeah.
And it can feel as though you are making, because you've got to make a decision, and it can feel like you are potentially cutting something off. And also the whole of conventional marketing goes against you doing things like that. You're constantly told like not to offend people. You're constantly everything, even though people will come out and say oh, you've got to have polarizing opinions and things like that. Most people will feel that they need to appeal to as wide an audience as possible. And this is the thing I go, when I work with people with polarizing message, they have a message. They know what their message is, but they're just trying to contort it. The difficulty they have is that they're trying to contort it in a way that allows them to have the best of both worlds, and they can't.
Right, to feel safe for themselves and not be kicked out of the tribe. That whole
thing. Again, it's a perfectly understandable thing, because it comes back to being human. Like we are social animals. We want to fit in. With social media, the feedback loop is much more powerful, and so. But the flip side is that it's almost as though you have to have the courage and make that leap, and decide to do it. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, it doesn't matter what sector you're in, you can find an element of positioning and an element of polarization that will differentiate you from other people. And you communicate that with different enemies, you communicate that with showing up differently. In some cases, you may be able to skip the polarizing message altogether. You may be able to skip the enemy altogether. You just need to show up differently and celebrate it. And this happened, things like, and I think you've talked about this before on other podcast episodes, but things like banks, like in the UK, our banks are terrible, just awful, like terrible, big behemoths who don't really, when I'm talking about ones that the public use rather than investment banks. So, kind of challenger banks come along, look very different, have good customer service, do everything that you want a bank to do, and all of a sudden they have a following. Whether it's a cult following or not, probably not, because they don't really do anything polarizing. But the enemy is the banks. But they're just showing up differently. They're showing up with better customer service. They're showing up with doing things that, rather than taking like 3 weeks to send you a card, you get it the next day, beautifully packaged, and they make you feel special. Just doing some of those things alone will make a huge difference. And by its nature, the fact that you are going against, say, something like the bigger banks is polarizing in itself.
And that was was that a rule or a commandment about just being different?
Yes, being different.
Better.
I mean, that's the thing. Being different is the most important thing. But there's two parts to that: being different and celebrating it.
And I want to just clarify, as opposed to being better. Like, you don't need to be better, is what you said. Just different. Don't be terrible.
No, well, the thing is not being terrible is basic level of competence.
Right.
And thinking that you're going to show up and simply use. I mean, the thing is, as copywriters, kind of, we know this innately, but it's like the message obviously doesn't get out there wide enough, and it doesn't get out there in a way that people think that if you just show up and you say to people that we do something better than someone else, or we do something in this way or that way, like anyone cares about that. Just think the level of stimuli that we have now. Like, you have to do something so impressive now in order to get someone's attention. And it's not, and the thing is, you're not even trying to get attention because you're like from your competitors. You're just trying to get someone to look at what you're doing, or just give you a brief moment when they're in their otherwise busy, difficult, stressful lives. You're competing essentially about them thinking about their kids. So what you've got to do has got to be so different, so scroll stopping, so unusual for what they usually expect, to challenge their expectations, that it shows why being bolder and actually thinking about how how you really, really show up differently, and how you show up in a really meaningful way. And it has to be meaningful for your particular audience. Being different for the sake of it doesn't work. That's the really important thing, and sticking to it, and not like deviating from it, and making it a core part of who you are and what you do. And it's just that message just does not get through. Like, you still see people, I mean, like, the money people throw away on billboard ads and print ads, and just telling us stuff that just doesn't, it's just totally irrelevant. It's like, it's not going to cut through. Like, who wrote that? Who signed that off? It's all right. So safe. You're never going to, like, if you are not the biggest business in your sector, and you are trying to copy them, and you're trying to challenge them or disrupt them by doing what they're doing, like, you're so far behind. You need to stop playing that game altogether. You need to kind of step off the field and play something else completely. And I think that's a hard realization to come to. But every single cult brand that has ever developed, ever become something bigger than a group of people has done the same thing. They've had to do something completely different in order to achieve the status that they wanted. However that was, because you simply just fitting in and hoping that you're going to get the kind of the growth you want. You like it now. It's not just a case of you catching up. It's like people are going to be catching you. So you've got people coming all sides. You got people. Yeah. If your brand isn't good enough, if your brand is strong enough, people are not even going to work for you. That's how the problem it is. It's not just about customers. It's about your team. It's about the belief that people have in it and the belief you have in the business. It's so it's so like all encompassing.
Yeah.
It's so important to get right and to really think about it if you want to have some kind of future.
Yeah, I agree. Jonathan, do you have any other questions? Man, the time's flown.
No, this has been very good. So the part on the enemy, I think people need to spend a lot of time on that one.
Yeah. I think it's the easiest place to start, really.
Yeah.
I think it's an easy place. I think that's what made ClickFunnels.
Mm-hmm.
Was that part of it, choosing an enemy early on.
And having a polarizing message too, because that goes, I know in my industry, that's people are a little leery of that, because they want to have all their I's dotted and T's crossed, but if you're going to stand out, you got to do something. Right? You got to have a message that goes against the grain.
Yeah. And you found even in your, very conservative industry that you're in, Jonathan, you found that you can find enemies.
Oh yeah.
That you push against all the time.
Yes. So we find them and we tackle, beat them up,
put a spotlight on them. The whole bit.
Well, that's it. You're beating them up on behalf of your audience. Yeah. That's the thing, It's like I'll very happily allow you to go into battle for me, but I will reward you with my, my attention and my sense of belonging. That's really it. And then the other element, of course, is building that structure around it. And one of the things that you mentioned on another episode when you were talking about Costco, which I thought was really interesting, which was when they don't give you proper bags or boxes or things like that when you leave. And it's almost as though, and you said something at that time where you said, oh, it's almost as though like they're abusive, like they're like they're abusive to you, like you've gone and bought things with them, and now but it's almost a key. It's like a ritual. Like if they change that, people.
IKEA does the same thing, man. They run you through that place. It's like a maze, and you get confused, and
you got to get your own stuff off the shelves. And
you've got to buy 400 tea lights, even though you don't need them. But you've got to, they're only a couple of dollars, so you've got to do that. You've got to do all the hard work, and it's all there's a lot of similarities with what you get in a cult, like the element of trust for those, and that kind of continuity, and the fact that they're going to be there is the hot dogs. Like the price of the hot dogs, like that is the immovable. That's like the church, like that is the immovable factor there that you don't.
That's the only reason I go to Costco. Like because my wife shops there, and I refuse to go unless I can get a hot dog or a pizza.
Yeah, but there's people who
$2 hot dog
really
pizza.
They will defend that hot dog. They will never eat that hot dog. But if that hot dog changes price or is not there, the whole thing comes crumbling down. Because
I know one of their CEOs put it in the new CEO's contract that he was not allowed to change the price of the hot dog on his watch. Period. If it was 20 years, 30 years, he could not change the price of the hot dog. Like it's that serious there at Costco too. Like even internally.
It's not changing that price.
But it's those little. It's almost like they're like symbols. Like they're symbols. Like taking the stuff out in these broken boxes and things like that. They are rituals.
And then they check your receipt like you're not stealing anything.
I mean, that's just
like they treat you like a thief on the way out, and you just keep coming back.
There is but that element of push pull is quite important. Like when we sent out our merch, we told people our merch was terrible. Like because I constantly say to people, like, we're not Amazon. Don't expect your merch to be with you at least 3 or 4 weeks after we do it. It's going to take months because I'm sending it out. I haven't got time really, and it's going to be. And when it turns up, the merch is awful because I haven't got time to really research anything. I've just gone to the first printer, and like again, it becomes part of it. It becomes like if we had good merch, it wouldn't feel like it. Like we put notes in when they get stuff, and the notes will be abusive to them. It'll be like, I can't believe you're buying this crap again. And have you not learned? And they'll love that. They'll take photos of it. They'll put it on social. Lorna, who did our merch for a while voluntarily, she was really good at it. She'd remember what they previously ordered and then comment on if they put weight on because they've got they've gone from a medium to a large. I mean that sort of CRM level of understanding and in connection with them is incredible.
That's very Gen X, very 80s.
Weirdly, yes, that's the thing. But again, those are the things that add to the belong because those will become stories. Like people talk about struggling to get stuff to their car and then doing it, and all those stories become part of that folklore. And IKEA has that, and all of those brands have that, and that's kind of like the other element to it is that you put those things in place. They're all very intentional, and you wouldn't want to change them because as soon as you change them, something happens. A ripple happens, and people stop kind of believing that or they're worried about change. Just having that consistency. I mean, there's so much to be said. Having that consistency and being there and doing the thing always, like in a world where it's changing so much, it can be everything.
We talk about old Dan Kennedy back in the day, with the
Dan Kennedy
photo
who died and came back to life again, and no one's talked about it
he
since.
Resurrected, yes.
Like that was the weirdest thing ever, wasn't it?
We had a whole episode like paying respects and everything, and he comes, and we said on that episode, if he comes back, like it's going to be the greatest, because he used to do that for seminars. He would say, "I'm never holding this seminar again."
Yep.
Yeah, that was like a standard line in all his seminar pitches. It's crazy. So,
but I mean, look at his stuff, like, 3-ring binders back in the day, the photocopied stuff that he would send out and charge you a fortune for. And people just people ate it up, it's like completely different, but it's like, this is it. This is what you get.
Yeah. It's like take it or leave it. And I think, again, that comes back to the confidence, isn't it? Now people are like, I'm going to survey everyone to find out, would you like this on email? Would you like it with subtitles? Would you like it, broken and think, shall I do, just tell people what, it's almost that this is who we are and this is where we're going. Are you on board or not? Like, it's up to you whether you go on board. It doesn't bother us, but this is what it is. And to get to that level of confidence I think is difficult for most things. But when you do, then that is telling people no is no one ever does that anymore.
Yeah,
we don't want your business.
I think both Henry Ford and Steve Jobs both said some version of like the consumer doesn't know what they want. You have to tell them what they want.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they both kind of said that.
Yeah.
Well, Jody, man, we've gone. We'll probably have to do this as a 2-parter, Jonathan, when we published it. But where can people find out more about you, Jody? I know you've got the Bad Boy Running site, but any last words you want to say to the listeners, and where they can find out more about you, either the book or wherever you want to point?
So yeah, if you want to find out more about about how to start a cult and like kind of the philosophy around it and the commandments, you go to howtostartacult.co.uk. I've put together a cheat sheet essentially with with some of the points that we've spoken about as well. So if people go to howtostartacult.co.uk/pint, that will be something there for you to download.
Yeah.
Oh, you can buy my stuff from Amazon. I don't care where you buy it from. It's all the same to me.
No. We want the affiliate.
Yeah, I got the link here, but I'll put it
John
in
can pull that up.
Comments. But what'd you say, pint? Look at you. You're talking about organized.
/pint. Yeah, there we go. Classic market. I don't know whether that's working yet. I don't know whether it's working at the time of recording. So
looks like
it will be at the time of publication.
All right. Well, yeah, it's still working, and most of our listeners are, like I said, listeners, not viewers. So, but yeah, there it is. Yeah. So howtostartacult.co.uk/pint or /pint. I still don't know to this day which it is. Jonathan swears it's forward. I say it's back. I don't know.
Yeah. //
I don't know that there's a different direction for the slash, is there? It's all of the slash, so it doesn't really matter. But
if you're
I'm going to start a cult around that.
It depends if you read the other way, though. Is it?
You read Despair Inc., then it's back. It's a backslash.
Yeah. I think it's a / because if I was writing, I would probably start at the bottom and go up from the last word. But that's why I think about it. If I was writing in cursive, it would definitely be a /.
Yeah,
I love the idea of writing cursive domain names.
That would be wild. Especially, have you ever tried to write the word minimum in cursive? That is.
Yes, I have. Tough. I have actually. Yes.
That is a wild word to write in cursive. Like, you cannot find where to put the dot on the I when you're done. It's kind of wild. So
just we're losing our younger squiggly line just going across. Yeah. Minimum.
Yeah, we're losing our younger listeners at this point.
Yeah.
Cursive. What is this?
Cursive. What's that?
This is witchcraft they're talking about. So it's cursive and stick shifts. They have no idea what we're talking about.
Yep.
So, well, Jody, this has been fun. We could probably go for another hour easily, but appreciate you being on. I know I just kind of jumped on one of your ads. So, if your phone has been on as you're listening, you're going to be retargeted now by Jody's ads.
Yeah,
you'll see the book one way or the other. So
no, I've been seeing it this week. Now. It's good.
Yeah. So some good ads, and hey, I may even drop a link to this episode on your ads on the comments.
Yeah. Oh, you should do that. It's those ads are great. Like, people are. It's the group of people who think this is the worst. This is the worst thing to be saying all the time, and then people arguing with them in the comments perfect. As well. They just tick off. It's just
people, when you can get people arguing in your ad comments, that is just gold. And most people don't realize that, but as marketers, we're like, oh yes, come on, argue.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's like, man, the reach is just so much cheaper and everything else. So. Yeah. All right, well, we're gonna put you in the green room. If it's not past your bedtime, if you can hang on for just a second, Jody will come back to you.
Amazing, thank you so much.
Quick. All right.
Excellent. Right. Yeah. Can't wait to get my copy.
I might even read that book now that I've heard about it. No, it's good stuff, and we touched in and out of a lot of the stuff. Obviously, the book lays it out in a much more linear kind of fashion, but it's basically a little guidebook and recipe book on everything we were just talking about. So he's got the commandments. He does have a chapter on the recipe and different things like that. So it's only $6,433 on Amazon right now. You can get your copy. It's worth every penny. Just go ahead and grab one. But yeah.
It reminds me of the quote from the guy that we had on years ago he was like one of the original guys that started a craft beer back in the 80s, and I forgot the guy's name, but he wrote a book and everything. The only thing that stands out from the interview was that his quote was like, make your be reverent about your product, but everything else be irreverent. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that Pete from Wicked Ale?
Yeah, that's right. Pete from Wicked Ale. Pete,
Can't remember his name either.
It'll come to me in a second, but
you spit it out on last week's episode. I remember you talking about him there, but
yeah, for Pete's sake, that's what he, I think he wrote a book like For Pete's Sake or something like that. But yeah, he said, make your product, be reverent about your product, but make everything else irreverent. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good quote.
That's yeah.
Jody's writing that down as we speak. So, all right, let's close it out.
Pick up the copy. How to Start a Cult. We'll have links on our website on our show page. Sean's got his copy. I will be getting I've already got my copy on Kindle and I'm reading it. So it's a good read. It's worth your time. Check it out. So, episode 418, and we'll see you all next week. May have a special guest that I'm lining up as well, not as we speak, but before we spoke earlier.
All right. Another week I don't have to worry about what to prep.
That's right. Have a great week, everyone. All right.